anyone who loves to read knows, you can never have too many bookmarks. And this is a fun technique making bookmarks using silk screens in a way you may not have thought of before. Hey there, Sandy here. Today we're making a project using supplies from the Whimsical Insects CreateAlong box. So this is the June Bugs silkscreen. I think it is utterly adorable. And I'm going to do this very differently than you may have seen before. Normally we take a silkscreen, well, Polymer clayers take silkscreens and apply them on clay. And the nice thing about doing that is that they stick. The silkscreen sticks to the clay and you don't have any problems with leakage. What I'm going to do today is put my silk screening paint directly onto a ceramic tile. Now mine has a little bit of a texture. I don't know if you can see that. Just a little tiny texture. If you have a perfectly smooth tile, you might want to use that one. You'll also need some painter's tape, and you'll need a squeegee that is at least as wide as one of the widths of your silkscreen. So this one is as wide as the shortest width. I wouldn't mind if it was a little wider, but this will work. So we're going to start with our painter's tape and tape down all four sides. But what we want to do is tape it down very securely and as taut and flat as we possibly can. So I'm going to make sure that's down smooth, and I want to burnish that a little. Then I'm going to grab my tape for the other side, but I'm only going to put it on the silk screen for the moment. So that's on the screen. And I'm going to take my squeegee, and I just want to, I'm pressing really hard. I know you can't tell in the video. I'm pressing down very hard so that this is taut. So that if you tap it, you shouldn't see any of the silk screen bouncing up and down. And I'm going to repeat from side to side. Except I think I need to go get some more tape. Found some more tape. My husband labeled it Sandy's tape because he kept making off with it. I could never keep a roll of masking tape nearby. Now this is masking tape, and what I'm going to do is just put it on my sleeve and take away a little of the tackiness so that I'll be able to remove it more easily. So if you don't have painter's tape, that's a good little trick. And now it's still sticky, but not quite as sticky. So the same thing we did on the second short side. I'm just going to put this on the screen. Then I'm going to take my squeegee and press from one side to the other. Trying to press that very flat. So if you do this, and let's see if you can see that, there really shouldn't be any bounce. It should be perfectly flat. You can use whatever color of paint you want. I'm just going to use black for some good contrast and to really show these lines well. Do pick one that's maybe a little thicker rather than a thinner viscosity. And you want to put plenty of paint here. It won't be wasted, but you need to have plenty here because we can only do one pass. Because the silk screen is not stuck on the tile, it's just sitting on it. If you go back and forth with your squeegee, like we can get away with in polymer clay, because it's stuck down, what will happen is that paint will seep under and it will just be a mess. So that's why you needed a squeegee that was the right width. So we can just do one single pass. So plenty of paint is the key. And I'm going to put it up here off my silk screen, just up on the tape. Plenty. It will look like gobs and gobs and gobs of paint. But it won't be wasted, I'll show you. All you need to do is once you get your paint up here, take off that cap. Just set it there for a moment. Get your squeegee positioned so it's lined up just right. Press down at a 45-degree angle and pull. And that's it. Now you can take all that excess paint that was on there. And all right, I'm gonna live dangerously and try to get these little corners that I didn't get. Hopefully I don't make a mess. There, you really didn't use that much paint. It just looked like a lot. Now carefully peel up your tape. And I just put mine right in my trash can. I try to remember it's there until it's had a chance to dry. And I'll just lift this up carefully. Now it will look a little blobby and messy at this point. Just leave it alone and let it dry completely. Go wash your silkscreen and your squeegee right away. My paint's all dry, and one thing you can do to tell without messing up your design is if you have these extra bits here on the side, you could just check with those. So the paint is entirely dry. It really does look a lot more tidy after it's dried. The paint just settles. If there are areas that you aren't happy with, you can come in with a craft knife and just kind of gently scrape them away. And then I would blow away the excess paint. So like this. By the way, these corners that I didn't silkscreen well when I did my pass, what I did wrong, and what you want to correct when you do yours, is you need to start off of the silkscreen like I did, but then you need to follow through and end off the silkscreen as well, which I didn't do. I had forgotten that. It's been a while since I silkscreened on something other than just a sticky sheet of polymer clay. But you can see over here, this is a little blobby, and I can actually fix it up a little. You don't want to spend too much time, and that way lies madness going too crazy. But if there's a few things that jump out at you that you want to fix, you can do that real quick with a craft knife. Next, we're going to add a layer of liquid clay over it. This is Sculpey Clear, and I've been really happy with the results of it. I experimented with Kato and I didn't care for it. It yellowed a bit on me, but you can feel free if you have another brand, maybe just do a small sample and experiment. And I tried a few things and found the best tool for spreading this is just your finger. You can feel it and you want to just spread a nice thin layer. Go a little beyond the edges because it does tend to pull back. So if you want your entire edge, and for a silk screen this size, you can get 3 bookmarks out of it if you get all the way to the edges. So just go maybe a 1/4 of an inch beyond the edge. Because this is thinner than other liquid clays, you just need to let it set a couple minutes, and all of those lumps and bumps and streaks from your fingers will smooth out. So this layer of liquid clay is going to trap your silkscreen design. And remember, go out beyond those edges. Looks like I got a chunk of something in there. It's a good idea to stir your liquid clay. The directions do tell you to stir your liquid clay before you use it. So I would let it sit for a while. Sometimes there are little air bubbles. Sometimes there are just lumpy areas that want to be smoothed out. Sometimes it pulls back a little too far and you just want to smooth it out more. So let it sit for a few minutes and then bake according to the manufacturer's instructions. So for these instructions, it says 325, 15 minutes for thickness under 1/4 inch, which this is. However, you want to add 15 minutes to that to give the tile a chance to heat up. So bake it for half an hour if you're using this brand. Whatever brand you are using, add 15 minutes for the tile. And here's my sheet out of the oven, all baked, nice, smooth, shiny finish. Now we need to remove this from the tile. So take your clay blade and just gently and carefully start working your way under the sheet. You want to have your blade at a 45-degree angle to the tile, and then just use a gentle sawing motion and take your time. This is a very thin layer of liquid clay and paint. a little bit of patience. You can kind of hold it and then work the blade, and your design should come up with the sheet of liquid clay. You can keep working at it from all different angles. It feels like I put it a little thicker on this side than on the other. It's definitely a little easier to do. And you might be able, if it feels like it's not going to tear, you might be able to just peel it up. But if it starts to just feel fragile and like it's going to give way, then come in with your blade again. There we go. Isn't that cool? And now you have your silkscreen design on a clear sheet. And this stuff is pretty tough. You can, at this point, you can decorate it any way you like. I had thought of painting on it with alcohol inks, but I decided to do something even easier. I was at the store and they had a set of Sharpie markers on sale. And I thought, well, those are alcohol markers. It's really the same thing as alcohol ink, except in a marker, and so much easier to use. So you can just go in and start coloring things. You can add as much or as little detail and shading as you want. But even these are the fine point. They're not even the ultra fine. And you can get into those little details, like the legs and such, and color away. It's kind of fun. It's sort of like you made yourself a coloring book with the silkscreen. Well, that was fun. Now, let's say you did all this and you're not happy with it. Maybe the colors are too bright or too garish for you. Here is a really cool trick. I have here some alcohol in a spray bottle, or you could just dip it out onto a paper towel. But if you were to spritz this with alcohol and then wipe, you get a really light version of what you just did. It lightens it, and you won't ever remove all of the ink entirely. It just kind of stains it, and I think that's really cool. It's actually also taking up some of my paint, so if you're going to do this, you might want to do it on the other side without the paint. I happen to like the bright colors, so I'm going to redo these and come back and show you the next step. Now you'll want to seal in your acrylic paint and your alcohol inks, or Sharpie marker, same thing. And you're going to do it the exact same way we did the first layer. Just make sure this is completely dry. It shouldn't take long. Your paint is dry, and the alcohol inks don't take that long to dry. The alcohol evaporates pretty quickly. So we're just going to do this the exact same way. Put on a puddle, spread it with your finger a little beyond the edges, and then let it sit for a bit before you bake it. Now, if you decide you like the lighter colors and you paint or draw with your markers on the other side, you'll want to seal both sides. So you'll want to put a thin coat of the liquid clay over the acrylic paint side, and once that's cured, then you can flip it over and do your drawing on the other side, and then put a thin coat of liquid clay over that as well. Because Sculpey Clear really is nice and clear, you can get away with 3 coats and it's still going to have this really nice translucent look. But if you only want to do 2 coats, then do your painting or your drawing, markering, whatever, on the side with the acrylic paint, and then that 1 coat on that side will do ya. Now just to show you, here are some I did. This is a sheet that I cut up that I did with Kato liquid clay, and it definitely yellowed a bit in the oven. I followed the directions. I believe this has 3 coats on it. I did lighten these colors. I was kind of playing and experimenting, so the coloring isn't great, but I did lighten these colors a bit. And yeah, I did the acrylic painting with purple, which I just decided didn't really look that great. So don't be afraid to do maybe a little bit of testing while you're at it too, and see what combinations you like best. It's pretty quick. So this is going to go in for another half an hour, and then we'll make our bookmarks. So here it is after the second bake, and because this is thicker, you should be able to just peel it right up. And there you go. Now we can trim it. And for this, I found a rotary paper trimmer worked really well. You might think you'd use a craft knife, but I found it doesn't cut that great with a craft knife. Scissors or a rotary cutter work really well. So first I'm going to just trim the bottom edge, and you can kind of just follow the design. There we go. Yeah, see how tough it is? It really is tough to cut. You might have to clean that up with scissors. Once you have one straight edge, then you can line that up and cut the remaining 3 edges so it's square. And I cut this sheet into 1 1/4 inch strips for my bookmarks. And there are my 3 bookmarks. Now you can leave them just like this, or you can punch a hole and add a tassel. That's always a nice touch on a bookmark. If you want to jazz it up a little bit more, these Hot Fix cabochons came in the Whimsical Insects CreateAlong box. They were all in a single container. I just separated them out because I find it easier to find what I want if they're separated by color. And you can just add a few. I wouldn't add too many. This is a bookmark after all, and you'll make it lumpy. But maybe just add a few. And you can either put it back in the oven for a few minutes to activate the Hot Fix adhesive, or you can use a Hot Fix tool. And there you go, a really unique way of using polymer clay supplies to make a very useful item or a nice gift. Once again, this is Sandy Huntress for CreateAlong, wishing you happy creating.